when I do an album, I'll tend to put about 20 tracks on, all mostly self-penned. Occasionally, I might do a bit of a cover, but I'll do like a mini album as well, which usually has about 9 or 10 tracks on it, something like that. It varies. I like to do like a themed sort of extended EP, if you like. So the likes of the Drag Strip. Tiki to the Drag Strip was a themed EP. Yeah.
Yeah, I really, really like. I'm from the generation where longer was better. Like more albums, longer songs. Like I like the '60s, like 2.5 minute songs. But I also like the prog metal of the '80s.
All right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it was kind of like I was caught in between there. So when I saw like your surf album with the 20 tracks on it, I was like, oh man, I could just put this on and like do my walk and not have to worry about looking down to change it. I could get all my steps in. So yeah, totally, dude. Like I'm totally down with like the long form, record.
Yeah. So the album that you probably saw was the most recent one, which is something like past, present, and things like that. There's about, I would say, I've probably got about 6 albums that are no longer on Bandcamp.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I when I started up I used to be with I used to record with a guy under the guise of the Black Hornets.
Okay.
We used to do, it was completely analog reel-to-reel stuff.
Oh, that's great.
And there's some of that on YouTube. And he had far too many projects on the go. He was in a band. He was in lots of bands, to be quite honest. And eventually, I said, look, I had to travel a fair distance to go and do the recordings in his home studio. I said, give me some tips and I'll just do it myself, you know. So I used to play lead and rhythm guitar, and he used to play drums and bass. And so he gave me some tips on what sort of things to get. And I just started recording myself, and then that was going back to 2009, 2010.
Wow.
And I've been producing self-penned tracks ever since. So I must have about 300 tracks thereabouts, something like that.
Did you release them all?
So I did have about, like I say, 6 albums on Bandcamp and about 3 or 4 EPs. And I found that I wasn't getting too much. I decided to go on a like DistroKid platform, to use them as a distributor and to go on different platforms. And I deleted all of my Bandcamp stuff because I was doing it. And then of course you can't get it back. So I've still got all the albums. I've only put the most recent stuff on there. One of the reasons for that is a lot of the albums, the name Eugene in the Sampletones comes from the fact that I used samples of drums because I couldn't play drums. But now since lockdown, I got myself. We had in the UK we had kind of 2 lockdowns, if you like. In between the 2, I bought a set of drums and a double bass, and decided to learn to play them during the second lockdown, so to speak, because we kind of knew it was coming, and I had to shield anyway. So.
Nice that you picked it up and learned it.
Yeah. So now I'm happy. Even I'm keeping the name Eugene the Sampletones just because it's established. I've been played on surf rock radio for many years, and I'm also when I had all the albums that I did have in Bandcamp, there was the British Sound Library got in touch with me and said, "Oh, would you like to put some stuff in their sound library?" And I thought it was a bit of a con at first. I thought, what why me? What's all this about? And they I phoned them up and I said, what's happening here? There's this chap wants to use my music, put them in the library. They said, oh yes, he's in the office. He's just sat across the way from me. Do you want to speak to him? I said, all right, okay, yeah. So those albums went into the British Sound Library under Eugene and the Sampletones. So I decided not to change the name, even though I don't use Sampletones anymore, or samplers. I play all the instruments myself now, with the occasional guest player.
Okay.
Yeah, I had Eddie Angel play on one of the tracks.
Really?
On I think it was on Milk Room.
Okay.
There's a lot of Hammond, like double bass and Hammond organ stuff on there, and he was. I asked him if he was interested, and he was keen to, so he joined in on that. And I have a friend, Kaiser Matt, out of the Kaisers, and he played guitar as well as Eddie Angel. So it was a nice experience. It was a distant thing, obviously with us being Matt's in Scotland and Eddie being over in the USA. We did a distant recording sort of thing. So that was fun. It was fun.
That album is really very unique in that it's got a real, I think it, and not everything's punk rock to me, but the ethos and the do-it-yourself and it has a personal touch, your personal touch, you know what I mean? It has your stamp, your signature on it. And I gotta say that. Go ahead.
I say I don't tend to stick to a particular style. My influence of the '60s stuff and current surf stuff it goes back to childhood. When you used to go to the cinema in this country, they always used to play the Shadows. Depending if it was an EMI cinema, they would play Shadows music in the intervals when you went to get your ice creams and stuff. And then of course you'd watch films like James Bond with John Barry stuff, and those are the influences. I mean, the John Barry 7 is just an amazing band, and I get a lot of I just keep listening to them because they're so good. And a lot of the British instrumental stuff, people are not familiar with the British instrumental stuff, but in the 60s it had its own sound, its own beat sort of a sound, which was really good.
Give our listeners examples of that.
Sorry?
Give our viewers and listeners an example of some of the bands they could probably look up from the 60s.
All right. So there's the Dakotas, there's the Miggle 5, obviously John Barry. Remo 4 was that was a band of session musicians, as I understand, that used to play in the Cavern, and the Beatles used to go and watch them because they were that good. They do an awesome version of Peter Gunn. The drums are immense on it, absolutely immense. But yeah, just kind of looking out for that sort of stuff, and one of the bands I like to listen to an awful lot is the Artwoods. They do a lot of organ stuff, but it's a very unique sort of a sound, very unique sound, very very British, I would say.
They're speaking of. So there's a little rockabilly. Because you have the double or upright bass, edge to it, and that is an aptly named style, the drag strip. And in the United States, there's car shows and things like that have a lot of on the bill you'll have a rockabilly band, a surf band, and perhaps a band like the Television Marys or a 60s inspired doo-wop or something like that. And I noticed there was some little background vocals on a tune or two that kind of reminded me of that Earth Angel type feel. All
right, yeah. I mean, there is one of the things that I like is the melodies of the 50s and 60s. And some of those, trying to create some of that sort of the chord progressions that they have in those kind of songs. You might hear something, oh great, yeah, that would be really good to try and get as an intro. So sometimes you do a direct sort of take from that, but more often than not, I just, as I'm sat, I'll be sat humming something to myself and think, oh, that could be a tune, and then I'll put it into my my phone, in the voice recordings in my phone, and then I'll sit down with the guitar and play away with it, and then build it up into a tune. I like to try and create a kind of crescendo, and whatever instruments are required to actually get that, I'll try and play them. So I'll play the saxophone or the flute, or and as I say, I'll go with any. I've done things from like the monster sort of themed stuff, spaghetti western themed stuff. I did an EP called Bounty Hunting, which was based on an idea that I had that would have been lovely to have been a film, but obviously that wasn't going to happen. But I was going to do like an illustrated booklet to go with it, to show the ideas that I had when I was actually thinking up the tunes. And that's although it's got some like I say, sample drums in it, because that's an old one that I quite like the theme of the spaghetti western. I keep returning to it as well. Can't beat that kind of stuff.
It's timeless. It truly is timeless. And I wanted to compliment you on your sax playing. Not only are your songs very guitar oriented, like the lead part that you play with the sax is very very fun to listen to.
Yeah, the strange thing is, I'm not musically trained at all. I just play by ear, and I remember going to a gig and I just got the sax, and I was talking to a guy out of the Jive Aces, and I said, well, what's the best way to get started with the saxophone? He said, you know what? He said, don't try and learn all the technical stuff with it. Just play what you want to hear, and just get used to doing that. So if you have an idea for a solo or some backing sax notes, then just put them in. It doesn't take too much, and then it'll sound pretty good. And I was quite pleased with the result.
Yeah.
When the same with when I have anything else, like with flute or say sometimes I'll put flute into something or anything in percussion stuff. I just put in wherever I think is right. I'm fortunate to be able to play a fair number of instruments. I can't get away with trumpet. I would love to play trumpet, but I can't get the embouchure.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I would think flute would be really, 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 really hard, like difficult.
Yeah, flute is more difficult because you have to get the octaves with your embouchure, with your mouth movement. And whereas sax, it's you press different buttons to get that really, and you can do it with your mouth as well. But I was quite pleased that with the saxophone that I was able to get the growly sort of a sound, which is like rasping your tongue in your mouth as you're doing it.
Oh, really?
Quite pleased with that. You either growl into it or you rasp your tongue as you're doing it.
See, I did not know that. I just learned something today. Well, when you say you're not like a formally or classically trained musician, I think part of the appeal for me when I learned to play guitar by ear was, like you said, just play what you hear and what you feel. And I think, a lot of musicians are that way, and that's why their music sounds soulful, as does yours,
Yeah. Yeah, but one of the things that I find is that when I've come across people who, and I know some people who are trained and they've been to university and stuff like that, it's almost like they're a little bit, I wouldn't say contrived, but they seem to have a method that they need to utilize rather than just playing what they feel good at and feel what they enjoy listening to. It's almost like they become a bit stale with it, if you like. I don't mean to be rude to people who are trained.
No, I get it. I get it.
But for me, I have a very poor memory, so I don't ever play live. I've been offered to be in bands and things, and people have said, "Can we start up a band?" And I've said no, because I literally can't play live. I can't remember all the notes. I can't remember, and I don't know scales. I don't know keys. I just play what I feel sounds right. So to be up on a stage would be a complete nightmare for me. But I choose only to record and just enjoy recording and listening. I just get pleasure out of that. So every time I visit a tune, it's like starting from scratch for me. Where am I going to go with this? It could be the same set of chords that I've used for something else, but to me it's like all fresh. It's like I've not played those chords before. And I very rarely, once I've recorded a tune, will go back to the guitar and play the same tune again sometime anywhere else. Once it's recorded, it's done with. It's a very arty process, I suppose.
Yeah, after you're telling me like your process and how like you record, I can see why your country wanted to put that in the library, because you're kind of documenting things that are going on in your head, sounds, and I mean, you're documenting it, and maybe that's the way that maybe they see that in the music. Yeah,
maybe so. There are a few people that get to hear my music that I'm aware of that have spoken to me about it have said. Often they say it's like having my own personal soundscape. It's my own personal soundtrack. I might be walking down the street and one of your tracks comes on and I'm and I'm there in the groove and I'm just sort of I'm enjoying walking as it's almost like if it's a spaghetti western track that their eyes are going waiting to see who's going to come out the corners. But it's a nice compliment. It's a good compliment, and I enjoy the fact that people think of it as being their own personal soundtrack.
Yeah, totally. It's like your own journal, like a diary type of thing.
Yeah.
And I think when we corresponded through email, I said, no, this dude really has something humbling that he's sharing with people, and I am also of the mind that I'll create something, put it out there, and walk away, kind of like your process is you create and then move on to the next, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's wonderful.
Strangely, you were talking earlier about prog rock, and I'm not a fan of prog rock, although I can appreciate it. One of the things that I'm looking to do is to try and create almost like a symphonic album, which just goes on. The tune just goes and on and on, and hopefully I'll get around to doing that sometime. I love all the idea of, as I say, going back to John Barry and his soundtracks and themes and stuff. It's like I'd like to be able to do something like that, and maybe one day I'll get around to doing that.
I always am of the mind, if you're at least recording it for yourself, and it takes little to no effort to share it, then share it. You might as well. What have you got to lose? What have you got to lose? Yeah,
and that's it. And I mean, without being too self-indulgent, I do actually enjoy listening to the music that I produce. And I will listen to. I'll listen to some tracks, and then I'll think, I'll just have a quick listen to one of mine, and I do that, and I'll go back to listening to, other people, generally older tracks, like stuff of the '60s and things. But it's nice to to do things for yourself. It's the same because I'm a painter, an artist, and again, I don't paint for other people. It's just for me. I just paint for myself, and I come up with some unusual results. Very, again, kind of inner thoughts sort of stuff. Very psychological stuff.
Awesome. Well, Eugene, I wanna thank you so much for for sharing your story, and I was really grateful that we got to do this, because I think it's important to for musicians who, like yourself, record things, that it's okay to share. Don't be just do it. Don't hesitate, because there's going to be somebody out there that's going to be appreciative.
Yeah. I'm not too worried about selling stuff. It's nice when you do, but I'm just more interested in getting it out there, as I said.
Yeah.
I used to help Willie Mars on Surf Rock Radio to do Guitars from Mars, that particular setup, and we used to do a couple of things together. But selecting bands that we would just like to put out on air if we possibly can. So getting it out there for me is just great fun. I mean, it's nice to hear your feedback as well. We spoke a little bit about reviews and things, and occasionally when I do find that there are people that review my stuff, it's very complimentary, and it's nice to hear that. Not that I'm seeking it, but it's nice to know that other people get something out of the music. And as I say, my YouTube has a lot of backdated stuff on it, and I think there's some old tracks on there. I've put very few new tracks on. The newer tracks are on my Bandcamp page, and I've been doing some recording with my partner as Cat and the Chick, and that's more folk orientated. But that's a whole new experience.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Eugene, and I want to have a listen to that again, and when I go on my third walk of the day, and I encourage everybody to check out the link in the description of the video, because that's where his Bandcamp is going to be, and also I'm going to find out from Eugene where your YouTube channel is. What's your YouTube channel called?
I think it is just Eugene and the Sampletones. I think if you search that on YouTube, you'll come up with my stuff. As I say, there's most of the Black Hornets things are on there as well. So that's the very first recordings. And again, that was all done with reel-to-reel technology, so to speak. And as I say, I learned from him to do, to record stuff at home as well. So, and also learning about the beauty of vintage instruments. Most of the instruments that I play are 60s guitars and amplifiers. So it's nice to be able to feel as though you're in that that guitar's being played at that time in reality.
Oh.
It's actually being played in the 60s. So it's quite nice to do that. Anything from Hofner's to Hagstrom's, and I've just recently got a Fender Bassman head, which is a nice, very nice sounding. Very nice sounding.
I always love to hear when other guitar players pick up the Bassman, because I used to play through a Bassman.
Right, yeah. It's lovely. It's a really lovely sound. I've got a 69 Marshall head as well, and that's such a beautiful sound. You just can't beat the valve sound. The valves and I use my go-to guitar is a Fenton wheel, which is it's like a Burns Sonic, and it has Burns trisonic pickups on it. Sounds utterly amazing. It was mostly used on the Drag Strip album, that one. But yeah, I like to keep it vintage as best as possible to get the good sound.
Awesome. Well, you take care, Eugene. Thank you so much once again.
Great. Thanks a lot, Ryan. Take good care now.
You too.